Hi, this is Shauna. Before we get to today's guest, I want to take a minute to learn more about you, the listener. We've put together a short survey at fueltalent.com/podcast to gather information on who's listening and to give you a chance to make suggestions and comments about the show. I want What Fuels You to be a great resource for you and your interests, and I hope these interviews give you practical advice along with inspiration for your career and life. Help us continue to serve you better by going to fueltalent.com/podcast. Thank you so much. Now let's start today's show. Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Nicole Alvino. Nicole is the founder and CEO of Firstup, a leading enterprise SaaS company in the workforce engagement and intelligence space. She is a passionate entrepreneur making millions of global employees more supported and productive, and enterprise customers, including 40 of the Fortune 100, more agile with workforce intelligence. Previously, Nicole was the founder and CEO of Dermalounge and started her career at Enron, where she learned important lessons about how to lead authentically and transparently. She received her BA in economics and Japanese at Vanderbilt University and attended Stanford University Graduate School of Business for her MBA. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, Shauna. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Rapid fire. Mountains or water?
Water.
Favorite type of cuisine?
Japanese.
Oh, yum. Wait, have you been to? Oh, yes.
I lived in Japan.
Yes, I know this. Well, perfect. Bucket list vacation, place that you want to go visit.
Hiking through Bhutan.
Wow. Okay. Are you planning that, or is that just like down the road?
Down the road, planning it in my head.
In your head. With or without the boys?
With the boys.
Oh, I love that. We're going to get into that. Okay. Top 3 words that would describe you as a CEO.
Empathetic, direct, and transparent.
Love it. You may not have this, but I'm curious if you have a quote that you think of or a favorite quote.
I have several, depending on what I need. So one I love, it's Colin Powell's, it's optimism is a force multiplier. There's another one that is something to the effect of Oscar Wilde of everyone else is already taken, so be yourself. Something along those lines.
I love
And then another one that I love is actually one of my best friend's fathers, who I was really close with in college, and his was, don't sweat the small stuff. And by the way, it's all small stuff.
Awesome. I feel like these are all ones when I'm asking them, I just hope someone's kids are listening, especially that one. Right. And the second one too. Everyone else is taken. What was your very first concert?
Oh, this is so embarrassing. Beach Boys after a USC football game at the LA Coliseum when I was a kid.
That's not embarrassing. They're serious business. So super curious. What did you want to be when you were little? Like little meaning like maybe 5th grade.
First woman president.
That's still a possibility, is it?
I think I might have taken a different path, and I don't know if I need that much public flogging, but.
Well, now things have just become nuts.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous. That's amazing. So this is a perfect segue. Like, who put that in your mind that that was even a possibility when you grew up?
I don't know. I think I just thought that that was something. I had this big thing of wanting to be the first. There was a moment where it was sort of astronaut first, woman on the moon, or first woman, and I just thought that president would be a good aspiration.
And so did you have role models, or like when you were, if you like close your eyes and you're thinking, like when you're the boys' age, how old are the boys right now? Your kids?
8, 9, and 11.
Okay. So when you're 8, 9, 11, is there someone that you're thinking about that's like, oh my gosh, that woman is so badass. Like I can't imagine being her.
I don't think so. If I look back, I had some really great teachers along the way. And I have this funny story of when I was in first grade, and it was a reading group of one. Somehow I just loved to read and had learned to read already. And when she would have to go to the office, she put me in front of the rest of my little classmates and have me read a book to them. And so I think I embraced that. I'm also a firstborn out of 4. And so I would sit and read to my class and have my children get the carpet squares. And so maybe I enjoyed
So
that type of big authority in the first grade
yeah, the
classroom.
leadership thing. Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
In Huntington Beach, California.
Oh my gosh. So how do you like Seattle? Like the gray. Actually, today's kind of nice. It's not too bad.
Well, I had a big stint about 20 years in San Francisco. So
yeah.
and
Where's your
some
family
fun,
now?
mostly Southern California, and my sister's in Nashville.
Oh, not bad. So walk me through like what's a day in the life of Nicole in Huntington Beach? Is it like what I'm picturing? Like for some reason I picture that just like the most utopian childhood.
It was pretty great. You didn't realize until you left. I mean, we did definitely spend summers going to the beach. I was not a surfer. I played volleyball on the beach. My best friend and I would, yeah, boogie board, play volleyball. We had this wonderful thing called junior lifeguards where great thing for any kids in Southern California, but basically you do running and learn about ocean safety and swim around the pier and kind of like boot camp, but you don't really think it's boot camp because you're outside on the beach.
Yeah.
But
So
those are some of my memories.
I love that. And so I'm guessing because you were reading young that you were a good student. Were you just good in the kind of reading English that side, or also good at the math and sciences?
Yeah, I loved the math and sciences.
So when you were little, I guess, what did you want to study and how did you choose to go? I know you went to college at Vanderbilt. How did you, I mean, from Southern California, why Vanderbilt?
Yeah, so I had this thing that I didn't want to go to school in California because I knew that I thought I could always come back. And I wanted something different, but for some reason, I thought the Northeast would be too cold. My dad had grown up in New York and always just said how the Northeast was so cold and horrible, and we were soft California kids and wouldn't be able to cut it. So somehow I targeted schools in the Southeast, and I had a very Italian, pretty strict economist father who literally had me do a matrix of all of the things that I wanted in a college and list out the college. And of course, at the top of his matrix, I knew I wanted to study economics, and I had was pretty fluent in Spanish. I had just spent the summer living in Venezuela as a foreign exchange student, and so I wanted to try a new language. Japanese was the one, and so I was looking at schools that had all these other possibilities to study abroad and do these different things. And my dad was like, no, no, no. The top one is you have to look at the economics ranking, and that's how you have to choose a school. So it was on my list. That wasn't the top of the list. And it ended up
So
being.
they just had a really good econ program?
Sort of, not exceptional. That was what my father was focused on, and that was his ranking, but that wasn't necessarily my ranking.
Yeah. And what did he, I'm guessing he was in business, or what did he do?
Yeah, he was an economist. So very almost like statistician kind of high numbers, a lot of deep analysis and thinking, but not necessarily commercial minded business per se.
Yeah. And are you more like your mom or more like your dad? And I guess what attributes have you taken from them?
Yeah, I'm probably some of each. So I think that intellectual curiosity, business sense, definitely my dad. So he stopped, kind of took his economics background, and then he was an entrepreneur. So I saw that growing up. And my mom is very social, involved with a lot of friends and activities. And so I definitely have that part from her, and just have memories of her hosting her sorority groups and doing different things with different groups of friends. And I think that's something that I definitely do. My friend groups are very important to me. And so I think I take both parts of them.
Yeah. And when you said, like, when you got into Vanderbilt, was that, what else were you looking at? And was that, like, in retrospect, the right choice for you?
Yeah, I think absolutely. One of the, I don't know, fights is the right word, with my dad. I grew up in Southern California. My mom and a bunch of my family went to USC, and that was more of a tried and true type of situation. And I ended up getting almost like a full ride merit scholarship. And I actually just didn't want to go there because I felt like it would be more of the same. A lot of people from my high school went there. I would have known the sorority I would have been in, and it just wasn't something that I wanted to do. I also got accepted into the business program. And one of my memories, I was interviewing with the dean and I was asking them about study abroad. And the dean was, and it was sort of like, if you're in the business program, you don't study abroad, but I really wanted to study abroad. And I kept asking this dean. And after, my dad is like, oh my gosh, like, you do not tell the dean of the business school that you want to study abroad if you're going to get into this program. But anyway, I ended up doing what I wanted to do. I'm a bit stubborn, and so ended up going to Vanderbilt and studying abroad.
So tell me about Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so Vanderbilt, and I think it was a great school for me. Very different, obviously. It was in the South. I laugh that I showed up with my like flip flops and wet hair out of the shower, and all of these girls were like lots of makeup and full blow dry hair and
hot rollers,
pearls,
the whole nine.
pearls at the football game. So it was a little bit of a culture shock. I was friends with all the California kids at first, but then ended up, have obviously really enjoying it. I think it's about 6,000 undergrad, and then probably half that in their different grad schools. I think, like SC, it's become much harder to get into than when I went there. But yeah, and one of the other stories, so I looked at schools all in the Southeast. Vanderbilt was always in my top kind of couple. And then I applied for this program. It was called an Ingram Scholar Program that looked at kids who were interested in business or professional schools, but also did a lot of community service, and that was important to them. And so the person who started this program was Bronson Ingram, and he did a lot of philanthropy. And so I ended up, actually didn't get it my freshman year, but as part of that interview process, going back to see the school for a second time really cemented that I wanted to go there. And so I went there and ended up applying again, and was part of this program for my sophomore through senior year, which was pretty incredible.
What was the program?
Yeah, it was a small group of, it was basically kids. We were young adults then, I guess. And they would bring people who, like different CEOs of companies, to come talk to us just about different aspects of leadership. And so it was interesting. I think probably now in undergrad there's more of that, but it was relatively new then. And some of the peers in my program just have gone on to do other really phenomenal things, and really thinking about how to use business to change the world and do things with really positive impact. So,
and that seems so progressive back then, because like now obviously social impact is so big. And talk about something that would influence you and kind of stick with you And what a unique opportunity. Like, I actually haven't heard of that. That's super cool.
Yeah, it was really
Really
cool.
neat.
Yeah, it was really neat. And it was also kind of different from my core social group too. So it was just fun to have different groups of people in that formative time.
Yeah. So what's crazy is I remember when we were first talking about your background and your career, and you're like such a badass and so humble about it. But when you told me Enron, I like just kind of freaked out because I've been recruiting for 30 years, and early days Enron, it was just like obviously the subject. Like, how did they recruit you out of off campus, or how did that was that
Yeah,
your first job out of school?
it was. And I got recruited. They had some people from Vanderbilt who had done well there, and they really liked Enron, really liked Vanderbilt. So that's how I learned about it. And I remember kind of my economics major, it was either investment banking or management consulting. So like a McKinsey. And I remember thinking both of them were kind of boring or a little bit tried and true. And then Enron came and kind of offered the best of both. And then I'll never forget, I saw the sticky note up in my little desk. I was the president of my sorority, so I lived in this house, but it was this little sticky note that their mission was to change, be its engine, then be prepared to capitalize on the new opportunities, the new opportunities, the endless possibilities that change creates. And I just loved that. I thought that was so cool. I still
How do you
remember it.
remember that?
No, I know. That's what I mean. I still remember it. The fact that I like see the sticky note and I'm like, I want to work for this company. And I first had learned about it. My favorite economics professor, who I'm still in touch with, first told me about it when I was starting to interview. And he's like, you know, so and so went to work there. They really like it. This would be great. And then I started that process, and it was just like, okay, this place seems just really cool.
Yeah.
Moving to Houston was not my first choice, but I thought that I would be, living in, an opportunity to also have a international experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that a lot of times right out of school, kids, when you talk about going investment banking or going consulting, go the analyst route. And I know that you started out as an analyst. Is it like investment banking where you're kind of working around the clock, or kind of more chill?
Um, so what I was doing was not very chill, because I was in a finance role. So different people were in different tracks, but I ended up doing working in structured finance, and so doing some things. And there was some of it was more chill, but some of it was definitely, at the office into the wee hours of the morning and cranking on all the different financial models. But I
And
think
if the boys decide that they want to be, pursue an entrepreneurial career, I guess my question is, do you think that that type of role is a good foundation? Because a lot of people that I've had on, ironically, that have found a lot of success, started in this type of route. I think it's like a combo of getting the shit kicked out of them, like showing that grit and kind of perseverance, and also just kind of paying their dues almost. And then also just deeply understanding how to analyze companies. I don't know. It just seems like a really nice foundation of just getting like a broad understanding of business.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. And I think about that all the time. It's so funny. My boys and their different personalities and people who were hiring out of college and what types of roles. I mean, I'm a big fan of whether it's the financial analyst route or even the management consulting, just a solid foundation of business and understanding different types of business, understanding just different, you see different types of politics too. And I do think there is something in the getting the shit kicked out of you, working really hard, and doing that for the moment. Did I want to do that for my career? Absolutely not. Do I think that, my boys can choose to do what they want? I don't imagine any of them becoming, life or investment bankers, but obviously there's a lot of doors that can open if you have that strong financial experience and understanding.
Yeah. So you were there for a few years. It sounds like you were there in Houston and then a little stint in London.
Yes.
Was that like they recruited you, or you kind of like put your hand up and said, "Hey, is there a chance I can go to Europe?"
Yeah, it was kind of the latter, a little bit of both. So I'm hyper competitive. And so they're in Enron was a competitive place. So I think it was probably a good fit for me. And so we were on these rotation systems where you would get kind of recruited to be in one job. And then once your year was up, a little bit of you have to go find your next job, they recruit you. And there were some jobs that were more lucrative than others. And so I was recruited into one of the more lucrative ones. At the time, it was the CFO's SWAT team. And so it was doing all of these crazy deals and things that fast forward turned out to be illegal. And my bosses went to jail. And there were some very crazy
Crazy.
stories.
Where are
Very
these
crazy
people
stories.
now?
Um,
Like, do you
some people
track?
have started. Yeah, so some people have started. It's funny. It's ironic. Some people have actually started companies that have then purchased some of the old Enron assets and are operating them. Yeah,
Crazy. So
yeah.
when you say hyper competitive, I always kind of like zero in on that because a lot of people would describe themselves as being competitive. Is
Hmm.
it a like I hate to lose or I love to win? And where does that competitive spirit come from?
Yeah, I think it's both. I don't know how you love to win unless you hate to lose, but I think it's more of it's more of I love to win. And yeah, I hate to lose. I think that my dad was really competitive, and I think it was him being like, you can always, it's always like you can always be better, and sort
Yeah.
of you shouldn't be satisfied. And I have this memory of I was like 7 years old on the soccer field playing like non-competitive soccer, and it would be like, "Where's your peripheral vision? How can you not see the ball?" This like
Yeah.
yelling Italian accent, and I'm sort of like, I'm seven, like peripheral vision. Every people are just trying to connect with the ball. So I think it was a a high bar being set. And
Yeah. So in all, I mean, I guess this is your outlet now. This is like in your business. And so outside of work, are there any competitive outlets that you have? I mean, I always joke because like a lot of people, they find whatever it is. If they were competitive athletes and now they're not competing, they just find whatever it is that they can compete in. And some people, you'll play like board games and they like freak out if they lose. Like, are you competitive across the board or just in elements where you're actually competing?
yeah, no, it's a good question. I think I'm probably keeping score, even places where I shouldn't. I think that's probably part of my nature. But um, do I play professional or competitive sports? No. I tried a small stint at pickleball, then I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So
I
that
remember. We're
yeah,
getting back
so
out there though. We're going to get you back out there.
exactly. So yeah, look, I like to ski. I like to keep my ski game better. I'm not by any stretch competing there.
Yeah. So you're competing
Yeah,
with yourself. I love
with
that.
myself.
With yourself.
Hmm.
So tell me about your choice to go back to school to get your MBA. Was that, yeah, I need to know everything about that. And it's another question that I'm super curious about because obviously if it's Stanford, totally worth it. But
Hmm.
some people, when they go back and get their MBA at a kind of average school, I'm always
Hmm.
curious kind of the why.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, yeah, it's good. And so in my case, so I was at that time needed to get out of Houston. There was an opportunity in London, wanted to go do that. Which was great. So I lived in London for a year, and it was a crazy year. It was 2001. So it was 9/11. And so I was kind of experiencing 9/11 as an expat, and then Enron bankruptcy at the end of the year. So before those things, I had decided to apply to business school. I was kind of off and on, and even now it's funny, but the CFO at Enron's like, "Don't go back to business school. You've got a great future here." And I was just toying with all sorts of things, like, should I go be in the CIA? And then I said, well, I have a real problem with authority and being told what to do, so I don't think I would do well in the CIA. But there was some sort of an adventure that I was craving, I think. Um, so I just went ahead to apply, and I said, look, I'm only going to apply to Harvard and Stanford, and we'll just see. And I remember that my my Stanford essay or application was due 1 week after Harvard. And that was the week when the first Enron article came out, exposing what then like crashed so quickly. And so this was like October. And I remember changing something in my essay about like almost defending what Enron was doing, and about the external climate will change and strong leadership is about weathering the storm. And then I laughed, but then 2 months later Enron's bankrupt, and then I was worried. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are reading my application. They're going to think I'm unethical because I worked for some of these people. 2 of the 3 people who wrote my letters of recommendation like went to jail. And so then I had this whole other, freak out that no one's going to accept me because they think I'm a bad person. But
what was your essay about? And did you write the same essay for Harvard?
it was different. It was, I mean, look, they all kind of asked the same. Stanford was their question is what matters most to you and why. And so that's, open-ended, but it gets to what matters most to you. And mine was just all about learning and love of experiencing. And so somehow I wove
What a
in
crazy story. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And so how has that served you? Like having your MBA, is it more the academic rigor as far as what you learned in the case studies and all that, or the network, or all of it?
For me, it was really the people. And I even questioned, so after Enron, and that very deeply affected me. I mean, these are people who like I worked directly for, and I had a hard time. And I even questioned whether or not I should go into business after that. I always thought that business could be something and should be something that also can drive positive change and impact for the better. Obviously, Enron did not do that. And so after I learned I got into school, I had several months before Stanford started. And so I went on my own personal walkabout, I like to call it. I took a backpack and went to Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia for like 5 months, and just went by myself. And my first idea, I was going to write my book. And in those days, the laptops were very big and heavy. And I put that brick in my backpack. And I didn't write the book. I ended up just hiking and surfing and diving and meeting really interesting people. And anyway, part of what I was trying to process was, should I go back to business school? And when I would meet some of these people who are kind of the lifer challenge, like issues with people back at home or family, and it's sort of like, I'm not running away from anything. And then when I would be out on the 2-week liveaboard diving, and I would come back and give the owner of the dive shop my write-up of how they really need to change their pricing and packaging to take advantage of a different market.
Awesome.
Or like how the surf operator needed to run more efficiently. Like I definitely wrote several little mini business plans. And so I said, okay, I think this is my calling. I actually love the idea of starting and building and thinking about business. And so I said, look, I'm going to go back to business school, but I'm never going to work for corporate America again, and only start companies where I can control the culture and the ethics, so an Enron situation wouldn't happen again. And so
love that.
Yeah.
So you did just that. You started Dermalounge.
I started Dermalounge. And so Stanford, so they have you write this, which I would totally do with kids. So when we started, we had to write a letter to ourselves, like at the beginning of our 2 years. And then we got it back at the end. And it was almost like, what are the promises that you're making? And my thing, I mean, it sounds, I don't know, quite a very, I guess, privileged now, but my thing was like, I've done everything in my academic career and work thus far that was always about taking the hardest classes and getting the best grades and being the best and being the president of all these organizations. And so I'm like, this is my time to not do that. And this is my time to just focus on the experience itself. And so that sort of was my take on, or that's how I approached business school. And so I don't know if that approach, but I just came away with an incredibly, just incredible friends and people who are now all over the world. And, when I go to London, I see people and it's like no time ever passed. And so I feel like that to me was definitely probably the best benefit for business
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. And so tell me the idea behind
Oh,
Dermalounge.
Dermalounge. Okay. So then stubborn me. So when I graduate, I say, okay, I'm definitely starting a company, but I'm not going to do nothing finance related, nothing energy related. I need to start a company in something I like. So my buckets were travel, wine, and spa. And
You're
so
my kind of girl. I'm like done and done.
and I did that. Yeah, we wrote a wine business plan for importing that didn't really come to fruition. And then I wrote a great business plan. I'll still do this one day. Mind, body, soul rejuvenation retreats around the world, and did a little personal investigation, but so no one would fund that job or fund that business, as it were. So then I actually partnered with somebody who had a version of a day spa in San Francisco, and they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And so kind of researched the market and wrote this business plan that turned up being Dermalounge. And then that was what I ran after that. And it was very early days, basically a medical spa. And then it was early days for that. And the idea was bringing anti-aging treatments and skin health out of the doctor's office and into the upscale urban spa. And so giving that experience with the results.
And how did it go?
Well, it went, I'd say, okay. I think it was a great learning for me. Um, I learned several things. One, I did not enjoy operating a retail company. I didn't love I didn't love the operations of that business. So I learned that. I learned that the small company it's just grinding and really, really hard, right? The toilet is not working and I get called in the middle of the night or the fire alarm goes off. And so I think those are all, great for grit and understanding. We ended up with two locations, one in San Francisco and one in Burlingame. Launched a product line, so I really enjoyed launching the product line and doing the branding around that. Kind of I liked more of the external pieces of it. I did like managing and developing the team. I just didn't I didn't love the small business. And then when I was trying to my vision for world domination in skin health, which now it's totally taken off and private equity invests in these things. So I was early, but at the time it was 2008 and I was trying to raise money to go much bigger. And it was 2008. And so I couldn't. And it's like, I don't want to sit around and run it's just a small company. And at that point in my life, I wanted to do something different. And so what was interesting about Dermalounge was we were one of Yelp's first customers. We are one of the first people who used a brand page on Facebook, and our best customers were word of mouth referrals, and both from customers and from our employees. And so for me, it was like, is there something with tech and social and advocacy, and could that be a business in and of itself? And so the earliest iteration of Firstup was something that had all of those components around social advocacy for brands.
What was the first name and what was the first business idea?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because there were so many different twists and turns. The first iteration, what's now Firstup, before it was Social Chorus, and it was the idea that you're bringing your employees together into chorus to sort of share on social. And so that was the name for that concept. And then we sort of got bigger and just said, before you can ask employees to share how great you are on social media, they need to feel connected and understand the purpose of the company. And there's a real void in corporate communications and any technology that they have. So think old email, intranet, all of the bad things that bad old tech that companies give their people. And so we thought there was a huge opportunity just to disrupt that, and especially in technology to reach the frontline worker. And that was someone who was really not connected with tech. This is obviously way before a pandemic and all of the thousands of things that have been rolled out, but that was early days in just helping people connect with all of their people and make them feel really connected to the culture. And we were able to convince big companies like Boeing and Dow and Hilton in the early days to partner with us and be our customers. And they really loved kind of the vision that, I presented as far as what we could do with them. And so that was kind of the early iteration of what is now Firstup.
So how were you selling it? Like if I'm Boeing and you're coming to me and you're selling me what you can do for me, what is the pitch exactly? And is it the same pitch today?
No, it's variation. What we were doing now. So then in 2015, it was, you need a way to connect with your frontline workforce. And at Boeing, the pitch was, you have 100,000 employees who are building your planes who are not connected with the stories and the culture, and they're the ones who are creating the stories and the culture. And so they need a consumer-like technology. In those days, we were only selling a mobile app, but you need something to help them share stories, connect with each other, and you get data on what's working and what's not. So that was the 2015 pitch. And now the pitch today is about making the employee experience better for every worker from the moment in all the moments that matter. So even when you get a job, you get an offer in this pre-hire moment, to onboarding, to learning, to getting a promotion, to going on leave, kind of all of these moments are opportunities for better connection with your employer, better engagement, and that's what ultimately drives productivity and retention. And so it's a platform to manage that employee experience and all of those moments that matters to the employee.
So it's okay. So the communication piece is kind of a facilitation of the ultimate outcome of engagement.
Exactly. So our premise is that all of these problems that employers, they're all communication problems.
Yeah. Interesting. So we just did, we're small. I know that your target audience, so your target customer is like Fortune 500, like enterprise.
Yeah. I mean, we have any company with over 1,000 people, even 500 could really benefit from us. But we have, 40 of the Fortune 100 are our customers. So we do have a lot of the large customers.
That's incredible. You should feel, I mean, that's like really hard I don't know many people that could say that. So tell me how you're thinking about the business now, like how to stay ahead of the business and just in general, stay competitive.
Yeah. So I'm really looking, if I think about the employee experience and where that is compared to the customer experience, the employee experience is in a much more nascent spot. And I recently brought on this incredible chief product officer, a woman named Cheryl Chavez, who built out and was the chief product officer at Marketo, one of the leading customer experience platforms. Then she was chief product officer at Bloomreach, doing a similar thing. So she completely understands the customer experience and she's bringing that to the employee experience. And it's interesting because now as employers, we have to almost think of our people, we almost have to market to them to get their attention, right? And so things have to be hyper personalized, targeted to them, drive signal through the noise. And then there's all of this data that we give to our customers to really understand what's happening in their employee base. And so, for example, we have PVH, who's the parent company of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. They've been a customer for several years, and they have connected usage of the platform to much, much higher levels of staying, so a lack of attrition. So people who are staying, especially in retail, kind of 5x, 6x longer than people who were not engaged. And so that's kind of changed how they are helping people and guiding them on a place of kind of positive performance and ultimately retention. We have another great example, a customer called Extreme Networks. They're a global technology company who does a lot of like Wi-Fi for the NFL. And they noticed that their sellers who were the most active users on the platform were the ones hitting quota. And so they made that correlation, and then they changed how they're doing all of their onboarding to their new sellers, and basically are taking the insights that they found from the platform and driving action. And in this case, action is helping their sellers hit quota. So we're just seeing a lot of really great examples of taking action that can predict either bad things like attrition, like poor performance, or even things like a safety incident, first to be able to predict those things, which is that in and of itself is incredibly valuable. And then if you take it a step further and say we've got these insights that we're getting based on the engagement or lack thereof, and then we have a platform to really drive that action, and can take people on a positive journey to performance, to retention, to productivity. And that's something that obviously every employer will need now and into the future.
100%. Well, not just obviously because the cost of attrition is, I think it's like 1.5 times your salary or some, I don't know what the actual statistic is, something crazy. But then also just the whole, like, if they're more engaged, then they're more likely to be, like referring their friends to come work at the company, or, you know, kind of singing the praises of the company, but also being really good to the customers, you know, because they feel good about working at the company. So
yeah,
the ROI is huge. It pays for itself, 100%.
Definitely. Yeah, and we're even connecting like patient in healthcare, the employee experience to the patient satisfaction, highly correlated, right? And looking at different areas or different facilities, and those that are more engaged have higher patient satisfaction scores, very similar to hospitality and anyone who's in retail as well.
Interesting. Are you one of the key kind of revenue generators?
I always was. I think now I like to say I'm not needed to close big deals, which is great, which means we know how to scale. I still am brought in for pitches when there is a CEO who comes, or it's a really big company. I was obviously involved in our Amazon deal, for example, our Tesco deal. Those are two of our largest customers. So for some of those,
who in the company are you pitching? Who's the consumer within, like, what title does that person have?
Yeah, I mean, usually the buying committee, it's a head of communications, a chief communications officer, there's a chief people officer, and then the CIO. So those are the three main personas who, at the end of the day, who we need all of them on board to make the purchase.
And so I know your title is co-founder and CEO. Who are your co-founders? How did you meet them? And I guess when you're thinking about, when you're thinking about who you should choose as a co-founder, what was your vetting process? I know that that's a big choice. It's like a marriage, right?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. And with our twist and turn, so the other interesting part about Firstup is we actually were the merger of two big competitors. So Social Chorus was the company I was a co-founder of, and my current co-founder was the co-founder of Dynamic Signal, the company that Social Chorus merged with. And so now the two of us as founders of Firstup, we're both co-founders of our various companies that
Okay.
were staunch competitors. So that part was funny when we first met and started having conversations of, oh, what would this be like? And we were sharing stories of just winning and losing deals, right? Because the deal that I won, he lost. The deal that he won, I lost. And so it was just really fun to compare each of our versions of those wins and losses along the way. So that's kind of an interesting, I don't know, becoming co-founders, I guess, which is non-traditional. And then my first co-founder from Social Chorus, he was someone who I had met actually in business school when I was pitching him on another business plan that I didn't end up pursuing, but he ended up being a mentor. So he was a friend of someone I had worked for in the summer who was an angel investor type. He was about 15 years older than me. And so we are at just different points in our career. And he didn't end up investing. He didn't invest in Dermalounge, but we just stayed in touch during that period. And he would be someone who, I would go to and be like, okay, they don't teach you this in business school. This stuff is really, really hard. He would kind of talk me off the ledge. And then he would vet all these ideas of like, I've got this idea. What do you think about this? And so at a certain point, it was like, well, why don't we just do something together? So that was how that relationship came to be.
That's so nice to have that person in your life. And so tell me about the funding of the business and how much did you raise and how much have you raised so far?
Yeah, and that's also like all these questions with all of the twists and turns. I won't bore you with the whole funding thing because it was different, but the kind of our biggest funding was in 2020. So Sumeru Equity Partners made a pretty big investment, over maybe $140 million. And then that had, they're our majority investor. And then with them, we then kind of merged with Dynamic Signal and then became Firstup. And so that's, our main investor today.
And when you bootstrapped your company originally, was it just with the angel investor that you were talking about, or did you raise VC, or how did you originally fund your business?
Yeah. So he put in, so Dermalounge was like friends and family. So that one I went and raised money. My main investor like put in money. I didn't have any money to put in. So that was more of friends and family, and we didn't do anything institutional there. With Social Chorus, my co-founder put in money. We got some, it was a big private, like more, it wasn't a named VC that you heard of. It was Kohlberg Ventures. So Jim Kohlberg, who's
like
part
KKR?
of yeah. So that's his dad. And then he did private equity, and then he had a venture arm. And so he was our investor from early on, and still an investor now. So he's sort of been with us through all the twists and turns.
That's amazing. Wow. So tell me about the business model. How does the company make money?
Yeah. So our software as a service model. So we sell our incredible platform to companies, and they pay us, and the sales team tries to sell at least 3-year deals. And we continue to manage that subscription model and continue to add functionality and build new products. And then we can continue to, I don't like to say charge more, I say deliver more value and ask for the equivalent of that from a monetary perspective.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, so when you say you raised all that money in 2020, was it pre-pandemic or post-pandemic?
And it was crazy. It was kind of during, which was nuts. So we had been talking to this investor group a year before. So we had actually met them in person
Oh, that's
before the
good.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So we at least we knew them.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, but it was still bizarre doing the whole
Yeah. You're over
transaction
Zoom. Yeah.
over Zoom.
Yeah. That's crazy. And how did the pandemic, I'm guessing the pandemic would have increased your business because people are more concerned than ever about engagement and communication. Like that was the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, we have these stories of people literally like calling us on a Friday saying, if I sign a contract by Monday, can we be live the next Friday? Right?
Yeah.
Like people who had run
They're
through a whole sales
panicking, of
cycle, we
course.
pitched, yeah. Or people who had signed, like I remember Hyatt had signed, but they were planning on a longer launch. And then it's like, nope, we need to launch next Thursday. So we had some really cool just stories of being able to really help. MGM was another one. So unfortunately, they obviously had to furlough and a lot of their people, but we were able to, the CEO really wanted to deliver transparent, authentic communications and offer other places they could work in the interim. And so we were able to give, send certain messages to people who were being furloughed, different from the messages of the people who were staying. And then there were different types of messages to different people in different parts of the world. So the need for our platform, especially from a CEO perspective, became just acute. Like I say,
That's incredible.
the pandemic made made a communications problem a CEO problem.
Oh, huge, huge.
Yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
just did an offsite. We never really do offsite. So, but we're trying to, um, take this opportunity to take the business to the next level. And I'm focused on this kind of stuff. And there was a few gaps in communication, and I totally pride myself on communication. And obviously we're a small company, so it seems like that would be easy. And there were a few things that were brought up by employees that I'm like, huh? Like, how did you not know that? I speak about it in meetings. I've talked about it, but obviously I had not spoken clearly enough. And it was an aha moment for me that it was either a systems issue or a communication issue that I'm just not engaged in. And I can only imagine it at a huge company level that would be top of mind. So, wow, that's incredible. And how have you gone about setting your own company culture, and how has it been impacted through COVID?
Yeah, so we use our own product. I like to say we drink our own champagne. So that is a big part of how we stay connected. I have my whole executive team living in different places. So we have a completely distributed workforce. We have 400 people kind of in the US and Europe. And so what I do intentionally, especially with my ELT, like we have a cadence of when we get together. So one of the things I did in San Francisco, that was our kind of quarterly ELT get together. And then we did kickoffs at the beginning of the year for the field and had our EMEA kickoff in Belfast. We've got a big team both in London and Belfast. And so we brought that team together, and we had our North America team in Chicago. So kind of having big tentpole moments of getting people together, work and fun and just connecting, because you need that. And then I think if you have enough of those tentpole get-togethers, then I do think you can work really effectively in a distributed fashion. It's never perfect. It's never easy. Yes, we misuse Slack, all of the things, but it's like with anything, you have to be intentional about the team and the culture that you're building.
Yeah. And so how has your strategy changed as far as thinking about recruit? Have you always been distributed or just post
No, we were
pandemic?
even that way before COVID.
So that's great. So so nothing's really changed as far as your recruiting. But what is your go-to-market kind of messaging about what makes your company special if you're trying to pitch somebody on joining?
Yeah, so our culture is what makes us really special. I've had people from their short tenures to very mature in their career tell me this is the best place that they've worked. And I think it's a combination of what we do has purpose. So our ethos is really about reaching every worker and having that be our North Star. And we have a lot of people who, families and parents grew up in manufacturing and working on a production line, and they weren't seen as kind of worthy enough of great technology like executives would have. And so that message really does connect. And we have just all these incredible stories and examples of our customers, whether it's, at Providence and how we're helping the front line, or what Ford is doing in manufacturing that really does help fuel our culture. And then, we do live, one of my favorite business books is Ben Horowitz, What You Do Is Who You Are. And so it's like, we do live our core values there. We win as a team. Leadership is in our build, and we are all owners. So like, teamwork is hugely important, both with all of us and then together with our customers. And that is something that people from the outside coming in say, my gosh, you guys really do care about each other and want to be helpful. So I think that definitely is something that that permeates. And then, we do have a lot of competitive people who like to win. So that's the leadership piece. And obviously, from my background with Enron, part of me is, we always lead with integrity, and that's non-negotiable. And so that's something that I've obviously held super firm on. And then we give everyone equity. So everyone is an owner in the company, which is something that's really important to me. And I want people to have the accountability and responsibility to know that they can make decisions and they can make mistakes. Fine. I say, don't make the same mistake several times, but I'd rather have you try and do something, even if it's, even if you fail, kind of, rather than not try, but really own, that success or failure. And I do want everyone to feel pride in what we're doing and in the company's success.
Yeah. And so, when you're like going to bed at night, what's keeping you awake aside from the upcoming week of travel and trying to balance it all? What are you thinking about the next 3 to 5 years of the business, and kind of how to make sure that you stay competitive and successful?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm always thinking just how to grow. So we're just crossing over the $100 million revenue mark. So super kind of proud of that. And then I'm always thinking, okay, how do we get to 250? And what are the things that we need to do, both from just the operational piece and making sure that we're operating really efficiently and we're built for scale. And then what are those strategic bigger bets that we can make, just from a positioning standpoint, from an M&A standpoint. And so all of these things are usually swirling in my head.
I'm sure. And so how do you relax, kind of unwind? Are you able to shut it down outside of work?
Well, I really try. Yeah. So look, my family and my kids keep me sane. My husband may disagree. But no, I think that I'm a better mom. I don't know if I'm a better wife, but definitely a better mom with my job. And I think that I am better at my job because I'm a mom and have other things to do. So I do try to compartmentalize and definitely have focused family time, where I do turn off what's probably a lot of noise and focus on my family.
That's great. That's a skill and that's a discipline. So one I need to learn from you. Okay, my ultimate question is, what fuels you?
Yeah, it's my kids, my boys.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.